Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Saturday. I know where I live, it's going to be almost 100 degrees, so it's going to be hot for some people. Stay cool. Go to the rivers, go to the lakes, get some sunshine, but keep cool and hydrate. So, hey, listen, and I'm not giving doctors advice. I'm just saying it makes sense. There was some statements. I'm going to touch bases just a little bit because we talked about the UN and having a statement stating something to the effect of Iraq's going to be a powerhouse, a banking powerhouse in the coming days. And so I just did a little bit of research and found some interesting things. Yes, of course, the UN statement on Iraq and as a banking powerhouse and its relation to the global financial system is a pretty big deal. It can be construed in a lot of different ways, pros and cons. But ultimately, Mohammed Hassan, he's the UN Secretary General Special Representative for Iraq. On this particular site, it says that Iraq will welcome an internal and external banking force or a banking powerhouse. So that could be the definition of what the UN is saying. It does say, though, that the UN supports Iraq's approach with this transformation that's expected in the coming days. So there's some support for it. Here's one of the claims that states or suggests Iraq is poised to significantly enhance its banking sector, both domestically and in international financial interactions, potentially indicating deeper integration into the global financial system, things that we've been talking about for quite some time, which is to be fully expected because we have so much data out there in Patreon and our Discord chat room that supports that. Recent reports from the IMF, the World Bank, and other sources indicate Iraq is undertaking reforms to modernize its banking sector and align with global financial standards. I think we all know that's true. We've seen that time and time again. It's just a quick study on, reality. And if you think back to the IMF Article 4 consultations for 24-25, further data support the comments that the IMF and its Article 4 consultations support those comments from the UN. It says the IMF's 2025 Article 4 mission back in May 4 to 13, 2025 commended the Central Bank of Iraq for transitioning to a new trade finance system fully processed by commercial banks through correspondent banking relationships. This has reduced the spread between the official and parallel market exchange rates, enhancing financial transparency and international connectivity. That's pretty powerful. We've seen all of that in the news. We've seen them reduce the price of the parallel market, an illegal market. They call it the black market, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, it's where cash transactions take place, and those cash transactions are going to effectively go away in the future. Okay. It says the IMF also noted progress in digitalization, modernization of the banking system, and efforts to restructure state-owned banks, which dominate Iraq's financial sector but suffer from somewhat inefficiencies and non-performing loans. Well, we all know that to be in the past primarily. Are there inefficiencies? Sure. Are they going to be addressed? I would have bet. And non-performing loans. Well, every country in the world has non-performing loans. In my view, okay. It says they have some recommendations to include improving Iraq's governance, fighting corruption, and promoting private sector banking to enhance competitiveness, okay. All of which of those things will align with global financial standards. I think Iraq has been fighting corruption. They have been promoting the private sector, and effectively then what? It's going to enhance competitiveness, which the digitization of their country with new technologies is clearly going to help with that. The IFC, which is the International Financial Corporation, arm of the World Bank, and the CBI's collaboration, they have some things to say about environmental, social, governance, which is called the ESG, and they have guidelines, and they have a 7-year sustainable finance roadmap from as far back as 2023 all the way through 2029. And this aims to improve Iraqi banks' competitiveness, which will align with international standards. And they mention Basel Committee, the OECD, and attract global investment. Basically, they have a roadmap. The roadmap supports financial stability and sustainable financing, including Iraq's intent to integrate with the global financial markets. And they go on they talk about the United Nations highlights Iraq's digital payment regulations from 2024, which reduces reliance on cash, which is the black market primarily, promotes financial inclusion, and aligns Iraq's financial infrastructure, again, with global standards, basically the step toward integrating with the digital economies and international payment systems. And we've seen all this. The U.S. Treasury, the K2 integrity involvement. U.S. Treasury worked with the CBI to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. We know that. K2, a U.S. firm, has been auditing Iraqi banks since mid-2024. Basically, these efforts are aimed to protect their financial system from abuse and align it with U.S. and international standards, facilitating global connectivity. And then we saw things about the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. They have something to say. It says that the EBRD is set to commence operations in Iraq in September following Iraq's secession. Keep that in mind. Okay, this will support banking sectors and private sector investment and, again, integration into the global financial networks. But think about this. They talked about accession. Well, Iraq became a member of the EBRD in 2024, and so they have accession for that. It says the private sector investment side of things. It says the IFC's roadmap, which we talked about in brief, and the EBRDs. It says coming operations aim to boost private sector banking and attract foreign investment, positioning Iraq as a competitive player internationally. And there they put competitive. Okay. And it says here that, just say that, if that UN statement is accurate and directly attributable to high-ranking official, which his name is Mohammed Al-Hassan, it says he's a special representative of the UN Secretary General of Iraq. Its use of the term banking powerhouse and the urgent timeline of coming days would be powerful for several reasons. I'll get to some of those. It says basically that a statement from the UN official endorsing Iraq as a banking powerhouse would signal strong international confidence. Big word, international confidence in that. In Iraq's financial sector, potentially influencing global investors, financial institutions, and policymakers. With all the major deals that we have seen going on, HKN, Western Argos, GE Vernova, or a few, British Petroleum, the list goes long. Okay, they've done that. It says this language that they use is pretty powerful. It could elevate Iraq's credibility in international markets, encouraging foreign direct investment, fostering partnerships with global banks, especially given Iraq's recent accession. There you have it, to the European Bank for Reconstruction back in October, with operations set to begin in September. It goes on and says domestically the statement could bolster, so we're talking about what these words mean. It says domestically the statement could bolster public and government confidence in Iraq's financial reforms, and particularly efforts by the Central Bank of Iraq to modernize banks, reduce cash reliance, we're talking digital payments, etc., regulation, number 2, 2024, all right, and expand correspondent banking relationships, as the IMF noted article in 2025 article for consultation. Regionally, it could position Iraq as a financial hub in the Middle East, competing with established centers like Dubai and Riyadh. They're talking about building big buildings in Kurdistan. Remember that? I'm not surprised that they're doing that. Okay, it says here that internal and external banking force suggests Iraq's potential to integrate into the global financial system, aligning with the reforms like the IFC's Sustainable Finance Roadmap for 2023-2029 and the U.S. Treasury efforts to enhance anti-money laundering law and the CFT compliance. Remember we talked about that? Okay, a UN endorsement would amplify these efforts, signaling to international financial institutions, i.e. the IMF, World Bank, EBRD, okay, that is Iraq is a viable partner. That's what they would suggest from that wording from the UN. It also goes on and says, does it have any diplomatic weight and political weight? It sure does. It says a UN statement would carry diplomatic weight, potentially influencing the United States, the European Union, and regional policies towards Iraq. It could counterbalance narratives of instability, of corruption. So in other words, they've got a counterbalance for that. Basically what they're talking about is, focusing on economic progress, aligning with the UNAMI's mandate to support Iraq's development. You can see that this is, what I did in my last video is additional support for what we talked about. And I think you all should be able to appreciate that, because as investors, we should know what we own, and we should know that the pros and cons, but obviously that powerful language coming from the UN is truly what it is. It's powerful, in my view. Okay, here's an article that says Iraq ranks third in the Arab world in the number of bank cards. It sounds like it maybe not be a big issue, but they're making it a big issue. It says Iraq will enter the era of fully electronic tax collection by the middle of this year. By the middle of this year. Well, that's tomorrow. Okay, anyway, it says this will strengthen the confidence of global financial institutions and investment banks that Iraq is moving toward a more transparent professional economy using advanced methods that ensure economic prosperity. It goes on and it says that electronic collection will also give the impression that the Iraqi financial environment is more prepared to welcome financial technology solutions and investments in the digital banking insurance sectors. Those are big sectors, you guys. Digital banking is going to be a big thing. It's the wave of the future. And insurance. Insurance is always going to be around for trade, for cars, for houses, for businesses, for health. I mean, think about it. Insurance companies are some of the largest in the world. Okay. It says it'll basically make it in an attractive, accelerating manner, noting that this step reflects the government's strategic efforts to modernize the financial infrastructure. And again, their focus is going to be on facilitating non-cash transactions, which again goes against the corrupt. So Iraq ranked third in the Arab world in the number of bank cards issued, which is an important indicator of the development of the financial sector and growing community and international confidence. I like when they say international confidence in government measures, because we talked about approvals. Remember, we had the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, U.S. Treasury, Federal Reserve, the region. We had the conference, the Arab League. Everybody's given approval, okay, which is confidence in Iraq's government and their banking system, in my view. So he goes on and indicates that the government is actively pursuing digital financial transformation to achieve advanced levels of sustainable development for the year 24-25. It says that the progress is achieved in the use of digital banking payments undoubtedly indicates that the rapid strategic progress being made in spreading the use of bank cards in the beginning of a structural transformation of the Iraqi economy toward a digital economy. Again, we all pretty much can see that that's exactly what they're doing. And then it's not just Iraq, it's happening around the world. This is also a major success for the government's e-governance program and the implementation of an integrated and basic digital infrastructure, paving the way for the transition to a digital economy and broad financial inclusion. It says the progress also presents an important foundation for building an integrated digital market in Iraq. It says where the banking infrastructure becomes capable of handling both international and domestic electronic transfers. And we all know that there was some talk about the Visa and the MasterCards being having a time to be ready to go for international transfers, cross-border payments, commercially as of tomorrow. Again, that's what they've said. Because he goes on and says, electronic transfers will serve digital financing operations for small projects and develop electronic payment and tax collection. Okay. Basically, that information is you know, it's all converging in and around at the same time. And then we have the one that's called the exclusive. in Washington to Baghdad to prompt disbursement of Kurdistan salaries. And it says it reassures investors and paves the way for the opening of an oil pipeline. That's a pretty powerful statement. And it's the U.S. State Department talking with the Kurdistan regional government, and they're hoping to have them abide by the financial payments stipulated in the Iraqi constitution, and they want them to work to resolve their differences through constructive dialogue. The U.S. State Department says, swiftly resolving, this is a quote, swiftly resolving the salary issue sends a message that Iraq puts the interest of its people first, creates an attractive environment for investment, and he notes that this would be a positive signal regarding the possibility of reopening the Iraqi-Turkey pipeline. The biggest thing I think from here is that, if you want my opinion, is that they're talking about in the same sentence or a couple sentences, they're talking about resolving the salaries and opening the Iraqi-Turkey pipeline. What do they have in relationship? Well, they haven't done any of these things because they haven't changed the value of their exchange rate yet. And Article 12, 2, paragraph C, I think, to be fair, hasn't been exposed, and therefore they're related. That's what I believe. And I think a lot of us believe that at Militia Man and Crew. So anyway, the U.S. support for the Kurdistan region is a key component of its relationship with Iraq. Secretary of State Mark Rubio, he comes in and says, well, who was hosted by the Minister of the Kurdistan region, Barzani, and he spoke with the president of the region, where they emphasized the importance of continued cooperation to promote stability and prosperity in Iraq and the region. And basically, it comes at the sensitive time, which is Eid al-Adha, and that is going to be starting on the 6th of this next month, which is in a few days. And lastly, I'm going to just go over quickly the Kurdistan region, salaries in the oil and gas law. So they put that in 2 sentences in that article, exclusive from Washington. And then here we have the Kurdistan salaries in the oil and gas law are on the table at the Rashid Sudani meeting. So it says, Rashid, this is the president, this is a totally different meeting, okay? President Mohammed Shia al-Sudani receives President Abdul Latif Jamal Rashid, and that was today. And what are they talking about? It says the meeting reviewed the general situation in the country at the political and economic levels and discussed mechanisms for proceeding with the implementation of government programs. So economic reforms, financial reforms, and banking reforms are all part of the implementation of the government programs. That's how I see it. It says here, al-Sudani, the President of the Republic, emphasized the need to find radical solutions to the issue of financial obligations between the federal government and the Kurdistan regional government in accordance with the Constitution, the budget law, and the federal court rulings, while emphasizing the importance of enacting the oil and gas law at this stage. All right, you guys, that's powerful information, and I have all my comments in my Patreon room, and you can see that where my analysis on many articles, not all, but many, are in there. And these articles that I just read, not all of it, some of that stuff was my own work, but be apprised that because of the data that we have in Patreon, I know what I own. And I think everybody that is involved with Iraq Dinar should very well know what they own. So enjoy. Please, if you like, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.